Committee and the ranking member. You all demonstrate, I believe, a profiles in courage, as our chairman and our speaker demonstrating today that this measure should be heard and debated in the House of Representatives. Clearly, the debate has demonstrated that there are great differences of opinion on both sides of the aisle. The importance of Turkey as an ally to the United States, both as a supporter of the war on terrorism as well as in our efforts in Afghanistan and Iraq, obviously have been well stated and not taken for granted. I certainly don't. But I do support this resolution. Much has been said about the potential impacts of our national security and the current conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. But I would heed my colleagues who have that concern to note that, in fact, when Russia recognized the genocide in 1995, their trade increased with Turkey by over 351%. When Greece recognized the genocide, who have had tensions over the decades with Turkey, in 1996, their trade increased by 266%. And yes, the European Union Parliament passed last year a set of conditions, economic conditions and social conditions, prior to the entry of Turkey into the European Union. And one of those conditions was the recognition of the genocide. And yes, Turkey still is attempting to enter into the European Union. Nation states ultimately, at the end of the day, notwithstanding their own internal politics, do what's in their best interest. And because of the assistance and because of all the important relationships that we have with Turkey, I believe if in fact we pass this measure, that they will not like it, but they certainly will do what's in their best interest. And I believe at the end of the day, that will be to continue to have a relationship with our great nations. For me, as I suspect for others in this committee, this resolution involves the simple issue of man's injustice to mankind. It's occurred in Rwanda, Cambodia, Bosnia, the Holocaust, and in this instance, this resolution is about the Armenian Genocide. In May 2006, I went on a codel to Iraq and Turkey and Greece with my colleagues, Mr. Pence. As we traveled through Turkey, we had a meeting with President Abdullah Gül, who is then the foreign minister. He's president today. And I'd like to relate a story to the members of this committee. I talked about the positive relationship with Turkey and America and our long-standing relations. That modern-day Turkey stands for successful secular democracy, a responsible nation-state on the world stage. But I also told them that nations in the world have periods of history they'd soon forget. I explained that slavery in early America is one of the chapters that many of us would soon overlook. And even some of our beloved founding fathers held slaves. Slavery created turmoil in our nation for decades, and one of the many causes of the Civil War. The issues of civil rights in America continued for 100 years following that, and resulted in the Civil Rights Act passed by the Congress in the 1960s. And despite this monumental legislation, we still have problems today in our country, but we acknowledge and we confront them, just as modern-day Turkey should. The purpose of this resolution today, then, is not to belittle the accomplishments of Turkey, but rather to acknowledge an event that occurred early in the 20th century, involving a plan to remove people from their homes and their lands, and sadly it involved into one of the first genocides of the modern world. Modern-day Turkey was not responsible for that genocide, but they should acknowledge it and they should move on. It's important that we acknowledge this fact in an effort to heal the wounds, to build new relationships among Turkey and Armenia and the world communities. One can debate specific incidences, but growing up in Fresno, California, the land of William Saroyan, I can tell you I heard many stories as a kid from grandparents of my friends, the Khazarians, the Collegians, the Abrahamian families, about being forced to leave their homes, the stories of long marches, the massacres and murders that occurred to women and children. Clearly, they believed there was a systematic approach to eliminate the Armenian communities in places that had been their homes and farms for centuries. My Armenian friends believed 1915 through 1923 was a systematic approach among the first genocides of the 20th century, and so do I. This resolution is not meant to reopen the wounds or degenerate the importance of our relationship with the Turkish people or their government. and an important ally. But my vote in favor of this resolution
Gentleman's time
reflect
has expired.
the importance
The gentleman
of this
from New
and support
Jersey,
the measure.
Mr. Sires.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to congratulate Congressman Schiff on this resolution. I am truly amazed that a resolution that is not directed at modern Turkey should garnish such attention. And you wonder, something that happened 90 years ago, why all of a sudden there is so much attention to this resolution that is not even binding. The genocide happened. Over 2 million people. Why not admit it, move on? Every country has had their dark periods. Most countries have acknowledged it. But somebody's got to speak for these people that I see in front of me. These women that are over 90 years old, they have a history. I wish I could talk to them so they can tell me what they went through. Why not acknowledge it and move on? And I certainly appreciate the relationship that we have with Turkey, but I feel pressured. I feel like I have a Turkish sword over my head somehow if I vote the wrong way here. And I don't like that feeling, because the relationship between Turkey and the United States is as important as the relationship for Turkey with the United States. I am in support of this resolution. I think it's important that history record so maybe it doesn't happen again, just like the Holocaust, to make sure it doesn't happen again. So I am in support of this resolution, and I yield the rest of my time to my friends from New York, Congressman Ackerman.
Thank you, gentlemen. A good friend from New Jersey. One of our colleagues cited that there were 3 actors in this play, us, the Armenians, and the Turks. I would say and remind us that truth, too, is on the stage. Do not banish truth from this stage. Several of our colleagues cited scripture. I'm not one who usually does that in public. But in response to the citation that there is a time for everything and everything in its season, truth is never out of season. It is always the season for truth. And for those who claim that the time to do this is wrong, I would ask you to look at the 4 young ladies sitting here in wheelchairs who had help getting up this morning and getting into those chairs and onto planes and coming down here after living almost 100 years apiece, and tell them when to come back to this room for justice. What time can they come back? Please think of the consequences, the full consequences of what we do, the damage that we would do to history as you cast your votes today. This is not the time to study. It was laughable when Ahmadinejad said at Columbia University, well, maybe we should have scholars study this. The only thing that does is put it off to a future day when the timing will be bad as well. Please do your duty to honor justice, honor the truth, recognize history. There is no wrong time to do that. Thank the gentleman for his time and yield back.
I want to thank all of my colleagues. For Ms. Klein, you'd like to be recognized? Please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We've had tremendous discussion, debate, and expressions of why people are going to vote the way they're going to vote today, and I'll just share mine for just a minute or two. I think many of us in this room are students of history. We studied history. Many people in this room lived the history that we're discussing in this resolution today. But my experience has been through the study of the Holocaust, and in Florida, where I was state legislature, I worked with many people in the community, including a number of Armenian residents of our area to